welcome to Seeing Through Glass. You find me back in the UK, standing in front of a car that I think is super interesting. This is the Aston Martin V8 Vantage by CTR. Now we've all heard of Restomod, the likes of Singer and Alphaholics that restore and modify classic cars. Then there are tuners like Mansory and Novatec that tune modern cars. But it doesn't feel like there are too many people looking at modern classics, cars from 15 or 20 years ago, trying to upgrade or improve them. But that's exactly what CTR Challenge the Road are looking to do, and their first car is this, the previous shape Aston Martin Vantage, a car I've had a huge crush on ever since it launched. So the minute I found out about this project, I was like, yeah, I want to have a go in that. And that's because, whilst I've always loved these cars, I will admit that, well, the original V8 Vantage was never that good. I mean, it's always looked amazing in my opinion, but yeah, to drive it was a little bit slow, a little bit cumbersome, and a lot of people called it a disappointment. I do feel like over the years and with the V12 it got better and better, but yeah, these early cars, doggy is extreme, but maybe would be a way to describe them. So the thought of someone getting hold of them, just looking at ways to, well, just improve them, bring them kind of more up to date and make them maybe as good as they could have or should have been, really excites me. Now, whilst I may have used the word Restomod in the title of this video, as we've just been through, this isn't actually a Restomod, mainly because CTR never actually planning to restore Vantages. They don't really need to. This is still a fairly modern car. Instead, they're going to find or take in donor cars and just tweak certain elements, improve certain areas, so that the kind of whole package just comes up a level. You're not really supposed to know exactly what's being changed, but you're supposed to get behind the wheel and go, for some reason this is just a better driver's car. We're going to try and point out what those changes are. We'll kickstart with the cosmetic changes. From my understanding, some of these are potentially optional extras, but let's go through what's on this car here, which is the development car. Kicking things off, we've got this extended carbon front splitter, which comes from a Vantage race car. We also have the grille, I don't know if it's from the GT8 or the GT12, this kind of aero canards as well, just helping divert air around that front bumper. We have the bonnet from the V12 Vantage kind of, well, launch car. It's a carbon bonnet. They make you aware of that by leaving those two central kind of outlets or grills in exposed carbon. As we move our way around the car, you'll see a lot from the side is kind of stock, but at the back we have this additional little lip on the rear boot. And if we come down to the bottom, the diffuser gains a few little blades there, and that's to kind of help or aid this car's high speed stability. So that additional front splitter and then the blades at the back just help the car sit a little bit low and a little bit more stable once you're up at speed. Inside, a handful of small but significant changes. Firstly, these seats, Recaro bucket seats, wrapped in lots of leather, which is appropriate for a Vantage. Very snug, very lovely. We'll get into those a little bit later. Down here, forgive the messiness, but new pedals, especially the accelerator pedal, which is to help with, well, heel and towing, but also just general feel on the accelerator. And then, kind of more importantly, a new gear knob that actually comes from a 993 Porsche 911, but has a much better feel in the hand. This was installed just for me. Richard from CTR knows me well and went, these cars don't come as standard with cup holders, and that's not acceptable for Sam, so let's install this. It's not great. It's not great. They're actually researching cup holders in general because, yeah, this generating Vantage, no cup holder, which is one of the main reasons I never actually bought one. I'm joking. But yeah, as you see, really no sort of major changes here apart from seats, pedals and gear knob. But those are really your touch points, the most important parts really of any interior, aside from just the steering wheel. Moving on to performance, this is actually where the list of tweaks continues to evolve as the team at CTR keep developing this car. At its base, this is a 4.7 Vantage, and the big changes so far have been all new suspension, which is adjustable, new brake discs, a bit more power from that 4.7 litre engine, a new exhaust, which apparently is a quiet exhaust. It's not quiet. And reduced weight, which means the kind of headline figures are about 30 or 40 horsepower increase, approaching 100 kilos lighter. This is just a teeny bit heavier than the Aston Martin GT8, and then yes, improved on-road handling. Just quickly, I need to interrupt the Aston Martin goodness to remind you about HelloFresh, who have sponsored this part of the video, but I'm super glad they've done so because I genuinely use HelloFresh every week. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see me regularly cooking one of their meals. Last week I was in New York, then I popped back to the UK, I went to Italy, now I'm back again, then I'm going to Austria at the weekend. Essentially I'm moving around a lot at the moment, so whenever I am home, one of the last things I want to think about is what to make for dinner. HelloFresh removes that stress. Essentially once you're signed up, you go onto the website or the app, you pick your meals for the week ahead. And there's like 44 new recipes each week, so it's actually quite difficult to, well, pull that down to 5 or 6 meals. Then a box arrives with all your fresh ingredients and these super straightforward, simple to follow instruction cards. I'm actually home alone at the moment. Vicky's gone to visit some family, which means I've got to cook the meals myself, but that is no worry because as I say, the instructions are super easy to follow. I am no chef, but I just made myself a delicious butternut squash couscous, which is light and healthy and delicious. And as I say, I can kind of boast and send a photo to Vicky saying, hey, look what I did. And especially when I'm moving around so much, the healthy meals are the ones that I really look out for, the quick and easy ones. 15 to 20 minutes, bish bash bosh, super delicious, but super good for me too. So if you use my code GLASS2023, you'll get 60% off your first box when you sign up, plus 25% off the next 2 months, and a load of free gifts. I mean, do it now. Go check it out. There is a link in the description below. I promise you, it will make your life easier and it will make your meals taste better. No judgment here. Anyway, let's get back to some loud Aston Martin Vantage goodness. It sounds bloody nuts, this thing. Just a reminder, when CTR dropped this car off, they were like, look, one thing you might be disappointed by, the way it sounds. We went for a pretty quiet exhaust, we didn't want to piss off the neighbours. What are they talking about? This thing sounds mad! And it really heightens the experience, because you know what, it's quite funny, this car, even with the improvements from CTR, it's still quite slow by modern standards. We're at like 460 odd horsepower now, but because of the torque curve, just everything about it, you know, you feel like you're absolutely flying. You've got this engine shouting and you're going through the gears. You look down and you're doing 47 miles an hour. But that's no bad thing. Too many cars are too quick these days. This is a 10/10ths car that you can really enjoy. Now, it's been quite a few years since I'd driven this era V8 Vantage, so I'd forgotten quite a lot about it. Like, for example, how heavy the steering is. I actually text Richard at CTR kind of on the first day being like, what have you done to the steering? Because it's super weighty. He was like, very little. It actually makes the car feel heavier than it is. I think a stock V8 Vantage, a 4.7 litre, is like 1650 kilos. This car, closer to 1500. But yeah, on turning and just manoeuvring it around, you're like, oh my god, I need some muscles for this. It takes some getting used to, especially because I'm jumping out of much more modern cars that inherently have quite light steering. Another thing, well, how lovely this manual gearbox is. Now, it's not that rare to find a manual version of this era Vantage, but when this car launched, most people were leaning towards flappy paddle gearboxes, and Aston did offer their sport shift system, so most cars are equipped with that. Boy, were people missing out, because yeah, it's a really nice gearbox. CTR have done some work to improve the sort of flow of the gear changes. I mentioned the gear knob itself, but some other stuff, especially so it's better to use from cold. Looking at so yeah, that's really, really nice. And it means that you're left with this super analog sports car experience. Big old naturally aspirated V8 that roars up, you can change the gear, it's got a weighty feel, it's a bit of a workout. A really rewarding one though. It's a really nice car to drive down British roads. Or at least I imagine maybe the standard one is. Because, yeah, you may have noticed there, it's bouncing around quite a lot. Now, a quick reminder, the objective for this car was to take all the knowledge that we've gained and all the parts that have been created over the last 10 or 15 years and apply them to this thing to make it a faster and more enjoyable road car. and I emphasize road car, because if that's the case, well, they've gone way too far with the suspension. So firm. I mean, you saw it in that clip a moment ago. Over the last few days, I've just been knocked around everywhere. I know CTR had Porsche GT products set in their sights as a competitor to this thing, but they've kind of gone GT RS level, if not beyond that. It feels like it's set up for the track. It means that, well, it's quite uncomfortable to drive on UK roads. You're just always hopping and skipping and bouncing around. And I don't think that's very enjoyable, especially because at its core, and still its essence, is this big analog feeling GT car. And I get it, to improve handling, to move away from that wallowiness that people used to complain about with the Vantage, you've got to firm things up. But it cannot be that you have to get this firm. There has to be a middle ground. Now, I'd be doing Richard a disservice if I didn't say that I know this is not the final iteration. They're aware of this kind of consensus, and they're trying to come up with a solution to kind of dial things back. I just think he got so far into this project, so deep into it, he's driven so many miles in Vantages, he felt like this was a good kind of compromise for him. But I know I'm not the only person that's come at this car with fresh eyes and gone, oh, this is too far, like dial it right back. Because you want it to be better and faster through the corners and feel more stable, but you don't want this, unless they're going to claim that this is a GT8 touring. But even then, I think 5 minutes in this car on a road like these, most customers will be turned off. So please, Richard, dial it back, come up with some solution, you're clever enough to figure it out, and then call me to have another go, because at that point, I might be tempted to buy one. Genuinely. I know I said this thing is not that fast by modern standards, but it's not slow. Like, it feels very good out here. And you might have thought what I just said was an attempt at a cliched YouTuber clickbait title of, am I going to buy a CTR Vantage? But genuinely, if they sort out a few things on this car, I would consider getting one, and I'll explain why in a moment. But aside from the suspension, there is one other thing I'd want them to address. It's the brakes. You know, if you're going to move the handling and the performance forward like this, well, you need brakes that can kind of back up that improvement. And these ones don't. They are bigger discs, but the pedal feel is squishy. The actual brake performance isn't that great. I've hurtled into a few of these corners and it's almost felt like they're just starting to overcook. And that's really not reassuring. Like just now, I feel like I've got a bit of fade. And I've literally been out here for 15 minutes, so I know one of CTR's core attributes is lightness, make them lighter, so maybe they need to look into or invest in some carbon ceramics, and if not that, at least some stronger, bigger, longer lasting discs and pads. That I think is fairly essential. That is so addictive. So yeah, look, at the moment, car's not quite for me, but I'm in love with the idea and the premise, and I feel like CTR at some point are going to figure this thing out. But what is so attractive about this proposition and this idea of retro tuning, there we go, I've just come up with a new name, forget Restomod, this is a retro tune, improving modern classics, is that it can be potentially quite affordable, because this car, all in, as in the car and the improvements, 60 grand? Now, lots of money. When you're in the world of singers costing 2.5 million or something like that, this thing suddenly sounds quite good. The only thing I would say is, I think CTR can go further. I know they've been really focusing on how this thing drives, and whilst I personally don't think they maybe have completely figured it out just yet, they're getting there. I think they can do more. Not only could you continue to tweak and refine this performance, because at the moment it does feel a little bit like your friend has been working on his car for a while. I think you could do more to give it that kind of polished finishing touch. You can also do more to kind of make it unique, partner up with someone like D-Class Automotive, who did the seats of my GT3 on the steering wheel of my 360 and do custom interior packages, optional custom interior packages. All the creaks and rattles and things that develop in a Aston of this age, sort them out. I've got Apple CarPlay in here, so you don't really need to tweak the infotainment, but there's just things that I think you could do which enhance the product, not just in the terms of the way it drives. Because I say, they will get there with this car. They've just gone too far in the Focus direction. But if you take the formula of, yes, fundamentally great thing like my 360, this car, Audi R8s. I mean, I know somebody who's doing a manual conversion on an Alfa Romeo 8C right now. All of these kind of things I think are super cool ideas, and that's what I'm backing. I'm backing the retro tunes, people. So I'm going to applaud CTR for kind of kick-starting this thing and wish them all the best and continuing to refine this project. And I'll definitely have a go if they call me up and say, right, we've changed things up, we'd like you to tell us what you think. Don't get me wrong, I'm having an absolute blast out here. But this is not a car I'm ready to own quite yet. So go check them out. If you've got a Vantage already, or you just want something which feels borderline affordable, but a little custom, there you go, tyres are squealing. This could be up for your street. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you have. Stay subscribed for potentially more retro tunes. Damn it, I knew I was going to get that wrong. Retro tunes coming your way.